Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight. I'm your host, Alexis, and I'm joined for the first time, apparently in 2 months, with the other Alexis. Alexis Moreno is here, and she told me right before we started recording that this is the first time that we've spoken since the May 11th, which was... We're recording this on July 10th?
Literally 2 months ago.
Like 2 months ago, which is kind of insane, honestly. And so much has happened, so much is happening, and well, that's kind of the nature of our lives, right? So really nothing has changed and everything has changed. This is Red Spotlight, of course, the place that talks about what's going on in the latest movie news in the world of movies. And I mean, that alone, there's so much going on. I mean, as of this recording, I mean, we've already been 2 months into a writer's strike, I believe, and it's looking very likely that the SAG, which is the actors, are going to join them. Now that's not confirmed. There's still a chance for them to chicken out and either delay it for 2 more weeks or do a backhanded deal that stabs the writers in the back. So there's still plenty of chance for that to happen. But I mean, just putting it out there, we're on the precipice of something that we haven't really seen, at least not in our lifetime, and that could really change the entire trajectory of this industry going forward. So that's, you know, going around a lot of people's minds right now. And of course, there's been movies out. Alexis has seen a few, and we'll get into one of the films that we were actually just beginning to talk about, which has been in the news these last few days, is Sound of Freedom, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding that movie that we're going to get into later on in the show, alongside really what we've been up to these last 2 months, and it's been quite a bit. And of course, you know, for people who are not necessarily, or are new to the show, they're not very familiar, for the last 2 months, of course, I mean, we have reviews on just about all of the latest films in theaters right now, save for one. I think the only film that we haven't actually cared, I mean, you could actually make a reasonable accusation that we're boycotting the film, even though not really. We just rather ignore its existence, and that happens to be The Little Mermaid. I think that's the only movie that we're not even touching. Everything else, I think we've, for them, or at Fast X, although if, evidently Kyle's alter ego, Jason Momoa, was definitely in that movie for sure.
The one that I really, really want to go see, I just haven't had the chance to, is Elemental.
It is so very sad how this is at least the 5th time a person has brought up that movie in conversation, and my mind is blown because I forgot it even existed.
Yeah.
This is the 5th time this has happened. I'm not even kidding you. That people bring up this movie, and I'm like, oh, that's right. There's a Pixar movie in theaters right now, and I'm the movie guy, and I forget that it even exists. Yeah, you know what? I'm so sorry, people listening back home. Yeah, I guess there is another film that we haven't at all gotten to, and you know, we can get into that later on. I mean, Elemental doesn't look terrible, and based on all accounts, I'm sure it's a decent film.
It's pretty good. I've heard that it makes a lot of people cry, and I do really want to go see it, but again, I haven't had the time.
Yeah, the time is crucial.
There's a reason why I haven't been here in 2 months.
Yeah, there's so much happening right now. But as far as the films that are playing right now, we currently have reviews on everything from No Hard Feelings to Transformers, Indiana Jones, Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Verse, The Flash. Yeah. And we'll have reviews in the next few weeks on the heavy hitters, which include Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, that's opening in theaters this week, as a matter of fact. And then next week, the sensation that is sweeping the nation, Barbenheimer. Greta Gerwig's upcoming film Barbie, which stars Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling. And evidently those trailers have worked miraculously because it is tracking amazingly for a big opening and driving so much interest. Again, we'll get into that a little bit later. Oppenheimer, the latest from Christopher Nolan, who, may I remind you, put people in danger in the height of the COVID pandemic by insisting that his film be released in theaters. So I know people want to forget about that and like sweep it under the rug, but I haven't, and I'm still pissed off. So there is that. And of course, August also has a few selections for us. I know we're all very much looking forward to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. That trailer is one of my favorite trailers of the whole year, and every time it plays, I'm like, can I watch this movie now? So that one is very much on our radar. One movie that's not at all on our radar, but I guess every now and then it's kind of like a little bit of an Elemental situation, but maybe even worse, that we're reminded of its existence. In August, there's another DC film coming out called Blue Beetle.
I want to see it.
We'll see.
I'm also...
Yeah. What, the target audience?
Yes.
Yeah. Just... I mean, beyond just being a DC fan, you are Mexican, so that is... I mean...
That's not what I'm talking about.
What is the demographic DC then? What was the kid? What were you talking about? What?
Just the DC fan.
Okay, I thought you were saying because it was based off like, because I mean, it's a big deal that Blue Beetle is the first Hispanic lead in a superhero movie.
Yeah,
that it's an actual hero. I'm not counting people like the guy that played Namor or Salma Hayek or other people who've been in superhero films that have been side characters. I mean, like an actual lead and whose family. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, speaking as, I don't know, people who are in this community, we're kind of the ones that have been at the very like last of the list to get any kind of superhero representation, right? Like, hey, good for other minorities and communities that have gotten their time to get stories of them on screen.
Yeah,
but I think you and I,
the headliners or whatever the hell.
That's true, and there's still a lot more progress to be made there. But it's always felt that we're kind of the ones that get people forget about. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because then you have other movies where we are, but then people like to complain because it's not perfect representation. AKA,
I know what you're talking about.
It's fine.
Yeah, that was a different situation. So yeah, that's the rest of the summer. And that's where we're at. All this stuff we're gonna save this for later on. I want to just start off this podcast. By the way, this is episode 450. So hey, we made it to 450 shows. This podcast, for those who are not aware, its first ever episode was dropped in September. I want to say it was September 14th, 2014.
God damn.
So, although to be fair, we didn't regularly release episodes until at least early 2016. So I would say like 2016 is the first real like start of the show to what it is now. So I'm just gonna push it to 2016 because I do not want to celebrate a 10th anniversary next year. We're not gonna do. We're not doing that.
Insane.
That is too insane. We don't want to do that. So just putting it all out there. So I mean, and look, in the few years that we've been doing this,
10-year reunion, high school reunion this year.
Technically speaking, yes. Yeah, that's happening this year. I mean, it's a thing that's happening. I don't know if it's happening for me, but yeah, it's a thing that's happening. I mean, we can have our own little thing. Yeah. I mean, we do our little trips. Speaking of, that's a nice way to segue. The place I want to start this show is to catch us up and also all of you up on what's been happening in our personal lives. And this first little story happens to involve the world of movies, as a matter. I mean, go figure. I mean, that's what we're literally obsessed with them, right? So it stands to reason some of our plans may involve them. Okay, so I noticed that over the weekend online, I saw people posting all kinds of images and videos from the Hollywood Bowl that apparently Mr. John Williams is was doing a round of shows lately. and a couple of questions popped up. My particular story, I'll save in a bit, but one of the first things that popped into my mind, and apparently it also popped into yours, Alexis, because you did, you did bring this up, was, well, listen, a few months back, September 2022, we actually were there, and we saw John Williams, and by the way, it was an unforgettable experience. I mean, the idea that we were in the presence of, in all honesty, Hollywood royalty there, in my view, I mean, a legend, a living legend. The idea that we were there at a concert, and by the way, most people can't say this. We went to a concert headlined by a 90-year-old. That is an incredible feat. So, I mean, it really is. We had an amazing time. It had a great selection of music. There were some ones that were notably not on the set list, but I think overall we had just about as good of an experience as we could have asked for. Mm-hmm. Except for one thing. Except for one little minor gripe. So when the night of our performance, it started, and they utilized, for those who are not aware, at the Hollywood Bowl, and you can look up images on Google very easily, or video. Or you can go to my Instagram, or Alexis' Instagram, and look at the videos that we grabbed when we were there. So there are screens, obviously, because it's a large stadium, and there are people who are going to be sitting way to the back. So how can you see like this orchestra and this little man like all in the center of the whole thing? Well, they have these screens, and of course, when you're having a concert that is, basically just movie themes, it stands to reason that what would make the experience even better, was to play clips from certain films, especially the clips of the music you're lifting it from, on these screens. And that regularly occurs in these performances. For whatever reason, we had that at the beginning, and then I want to say, interestingly enough, whenever John came on stage, it just didn't turn back on. Yeah. The main it was screen. Just him. And the thing is, keep in mind, they don't just show like movie clips on the screen or accompanying footage on the screen. They show close-ups of John. That way you can see him and feel kind of the familiarity with him while you're there, listening to his music. And so it just it didn't turn back on at all for the rest of the night, and I found it kind of strange because, I mean, why? That was kind of a big fucking reason. Like, wait, why did someone forget to turn it on, or did it just not work? I mean, it very well could have been a malfunction, but I mean, Alexis, it crossed your mind too.
It did. I was like, where's the movie? I don't get what's happening. Like, it's part of the experience,
Absolutely. I mean, listening to him, conduct the orchestra is enough, sure, but to enhance it, I mean, you want to also put the clips. I think it does enhance it. I mean, for the particular selections that he plays, put those moments up on the screen. So
or at least
a lot
the
of
movie title. I don't know.
Something.
It looked like a scratched DVD.
Yeah. Basically, right?
Yeah.
Now, granted, like, they may make certain changes every now and then to the set list. I mean, there certainly were from what he was playing this weekend. This weekend, Kyle saw what was added. They got Jurassic Park and they got Superman. Two big things I would have loved to have heard in person. Those themes are like, obviously.
I mean, you got E.T. though.
I got it. Yeah, I got E.T. and I got Lincoln, so that's good. He also played, I believe. Yeah, he played all the ones except, now this might be a big trade off for you. What we got And what these people didn't get this weekend was anything Harry Potter.
Damn. You know what? I'm good.
Yeah, I knew you'd change your tune when you'd hear that. So, yeah.
And plus, we got a little sassy comment from him.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm good.
Yeah. Little sassy comment on the part of Williams. So he was... The funny thing that happened, and I'm sure we described this months back when we did the show, but... it slipped his mind to play one of the pieces from Harry Potter. So I think in between there was Schindler's List, and I think he had to go back to it, and he had to apologize to the audience. Like, yeah, I might have had a senior moment in here, and then the way that he said something, I don't know if it was in his heart of hearts supposed to be a diss, but it came off like that when he said like. It certainly wasn't anything against J.K. Rowling, but it's just the way that he said it. It's just the way that he said it, So that's kind of what happened there in that situation. Anyway, so here's what happened over the weekend. I, out of curiosity, was wondering to see how many more nights he was going to be playing at the Hollywood Bowl. It turned out just one more. So Saturday night, I looked it up. It said that there was one more showing Sunday, and more importantly, there were tickets available. There were a number of tickets available. As a matter of fact, from what I saw, there were, if you wanted 3 to sit next to each other. Now, keep in mind, this is like at 10 o'clock at night the day before. It was $233 apiece, which isn't terrible.
No, it's not.
It's not terrible at all, especially when you consider Mr. Williams is 91 years old. So that's not terrible at all. And then even more interestingly, and the selection of seats were great. Like, there were a number of seats that were open in the section that we sat at, or even directly in front of that. So there was a number of good seats. And even more, if you just had a group of 2, that price went from $233, it went down $100.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, in my mind, I'm like, do we? Should we? We're close enough. I didn't ask you because, would you really fly in the next day?
Maybe.
Oh, okay. I'll know that for next time. Although you would have been pissed off because there's no Harry Potter, so then there's that situation. What I was thinking was, hey, I certainly wouldn't mind going again, but more importantly, I know one of our crew didn't get a chance to go last time.
You guys should have gone.
But yeah. That's why I brought this whole thing up in the first. No, there's twists and turns to this. Okay, so just strap yourself in here. My mind was like, well, Peter didn't get a chance to go with us last time, and the reason he passed it up was because he is currently enrolled in a hellish nursing program that is supposed to be hellish and inflict nothing but misery in your life. That's literally on the dotted line when you sign. So he was at the very beginning of it, which is the hardest point of the whole ordeal. So he decided to pass, which is a shame because it wasn't just that he missed.
Damn.
He missed a whole bunch of stuff. He missed seeing Jaws in IMAX on the biggest screen I've ever seen in my life at AMC City Walk. He ended up missing going to see the Academy Museum. There's a lot of things that he ended up missing there for that weekend. So I was thinking this past weekend when I saw the listings there, it's like, you know what? We have the opportunity. My idea was like, let's just go. We'll drive there and then just come back.
Yeah.
There's no need to linger or stay there. Just go there for the event, get the fuck out. Very easily. That was very manageable. So I call Peter, we're video chatting, and I give him all the details about this stuff, and he's very much tempted, and he's very much wanting to do it, But very, very early on, there were a couple of things that were holding him back. The first of which is, in addition to him, constantly being pulled away because of a nursing program. By the way, right now he's on a 2-month sabbatical, it looks like. So he gets some time away. But the problem there is he has his own 90-year-old to look after. His grandfather is aging and is, he's doing all right, but he needs constant care and he needs constant supervision. And from what he tells me, the family takes turns looking after him and being with him every single night. And so, as families often do, when they see someone who has unexpected amounts of free time on their hands, guess who gets the opportunity to spend literally all of that free time with them? And look, it's very admirable what Peter is doing. I certainly could not do what he is doing. I mean, I'll just be real with you. I have my own life to live, thank you very much. Now, it may sound selfish, but hey, and that doesn't mean that I wouldn't take care of a grandparent, but I'm not going to devote copious amounts of hours of my life being there at the house all the time. That's me, but also with him, he's also basically a trained healthcare worker.
Yeah.
He's literally, so it's and notice how that all kind of blends in together with the nursing program plus his actual job that he has to go to, so I guess for the family's perspective, it makes sense that he gets to join in on the fun and maybe, I don't know, use his expertise in that area. But it's not hellish. It's not bad. From what he tells me, it's pretty doable. But the problem is the following morning, he had committed to be there with his grandfather. And in the time and the hour that we were looking at, okay, how much were tickets, when we would leave, and also getting a hold of Kyle as well, ultimately, he could not find anyone to cover because the other people who would be in the position to do so were all sick. Also, the grandfather was sick. Cold stuff. So, but even that's enough to knock a 90-year-old on their ass. We know that. So, at the end of the day, it was going to be a no-go, but, that was just one of the issues. So, in the hour that I'm looking at, the prices and what's going on there, I get a hold of Kyle. Kyle initially tells me that I got no income coming in, man, right now. Teachers don't get paid in the summer. What a shock. So, it's we don't want to go through that right now. And I'm like, okay, I'll pay your ticket. It's whatever. Okay. And then he said to me, and the most Kyle Lira response ever, he sends over a gif of Jim Carrey's Grinch from How the Grinch Stole Christmas with, but what would I wear? And of course, that's where your mind goes immediately, is it's all about the outfit. And it's okay, babe, hey, it's a reasonable question to have, but it's okay, whatever. So this next hour is just spent with him figuring out what the hell he would wear, and then also Peter making up his mind if he can or can't go. And I'm just there really? It's taking this long? By the way, all the while, the prices for the tickets are increasing. As all this indecision is happening, in the end, he could not get out of that engagement, and that ultimately is what, decided it. Interestingly enough, what came to light the following day, because we ended up doing something the next day, but it did involve a car ride. He tells me, keep in mind, it's been years now that we've gone on car rides together to go to movies, movie events in San Diego many, many times. Countless times. This is the first time he brings to my attention, and he didn't really bring it to me. It's kind of obvious what happened. So, yesterday we were driving, and I notice him not looking great, and holding on for dear life to one of the car seats. And all of a sudden it becomes pretty clear. Oh, he gets car sick. This whole time, this happens. And he doesn't really say anything. Which, if you know Peter, he's a very sensible person when it comes to the world. He's brilliant when it comes to, predicting where things are going to fall. But sometimes there are things that just stupefy you. You're telling me this entire time, like, hey, and he tells me, word for word, I don't do well in long car rides. And in my mind, it's like, well, that definitely contributed to you not wanting to go then to see John Williams. Because he actually had a conniption fit when I told him it's a 4-hour drive. Oh, yeah, it's a 4-hour drive. It's 4 hours to get from here to LA.
Yeah.
And then 4 hours back. And then he tells me he does not do well in long car rides. He gets car sick. And then various times, like, we say, well, hey, come sit in the front because Kyle went with us yesterday. He wouldn't want to do that. There's this thing called Dramamine. I don't know. I mean, he works in the healthcare or industry in a way, It's like...
He's been to LA before.
He studies so many facts about, all these different kinds of medications. They're telling me he does not know what Dramamine is? Do you see that kind of person he can be sometimes to deal with? Needlessly difficult. This is the same person, by the way, that all of us had to gang up on him and convince him, not even convince, pressure him to buy a bulb for his lamp.
That's
because
true.
He would rather sit in darkness in his room.
With a candle. Forget about that.
So you see what really happened was, he couldn't get out of taking care of his grandpa, but also he didn't want to go on a fucking 4-hour car ride. He wouldn't survive. And he tells me that the way that he gets by is not by taking medication, but by falling asleep. That's how he makes it through the car rides, is just knocking out.
There's also medication for that.
He's in this, he studies medication. I don't understand this. Do you have any idea how many times we've gone to San Diego to see movies? I mean, so many times in these last 2 years alone. And this is the first time this comes up. So anyway, yeah, we had an opportunity to go do it, but Peter chose not to. And it's like, well, that's 2 times now. You've let this slip away from your fingers. And I looked into, well, were there more dates available for 2023? The answer was no. You know what also sucked though? I looked at what the weather was over there.
It was perfect.
I'm bitter. It was perfect.
Oh my god, it was so fucking hot that weekend that we went. It was insane. I still have nightmares about how fucking hot it was that weekend.
Awful.
I'm going for a weekend in LA to LA in August, and I'm literally all the time I just keep thinking it's gonna be fucking hot. It's gonna be so hot. I live in a desert. It's hot all the time here, but that was insane how hot it was.
It was bad. It was hot everywhere. It was uncomfortable most of the time just being outside. And even that was the evening we were there at the Hollywood Bowl. But I remember sitting down and the concrete was just like, damn. And there's even video of the video that we recorded, a point where you're finally there's some a breeze coming in. That's how you can tell. And by the way, I mean, we didn't know. It just happened to be that the weekend that we went to LA, there was a heat wave.
Heat wave. and this happens every single time we go. But we also choose to go during the same time.
Maybe we should avoid September because
we should.
The previous September in 2021, we did Disneyland, and well, it wasn't awful, but it was hot.
It didn't help.
No, it didn't help. Oh, yeah. Um, so, yeah, that's my little John Williams story there. What we ended up doing was going to go see Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl in theaters. By the way, for those who are not aware, that film is currently back in theaters, in select theaters. You got to see where... I mean, we didn't drive to SD because we wanted to. I mean, that was the closest one available to us that was playing the fucking movie. It always happens to be that one. I mean, that way. But until the 20th of July, it'll be playing in theaters. And I had actually not seen that movie in theaters. I know, right? It was strange. Then again, not really with me, because if you know me, there's a lot of movies, a lot of things that I inadvertently missed, inexplicably missed in the 2000s. My first one was Dead Man's Chest, and then the year after was At World's End. Of course, I'd seen The Curse of the Black Pearl, but at that point it had been on DVD. So I never got around to seeing it in theaters. And so all of us were kind of like really hungry for a really good movie, especially a really good movie made that way. I feel like for those of you who listened to our previous episode, Peter and I talked about Indiana Jones 5, and a lot of the disappointment in that movie was it was a movie that happened to be a blockbuster that happened to be made in the 2020s. Which is a shame because, well, okay, what do I mean by that? I mean a film that is so unnecessarily expensive, $330 million, but you don't see the evidence of that anywhere on screen at all. The scale of it is fine, but the magic of the original films, and yes, this was made literally right before the age of CG, but all of what you saw felt real and felt like you were there. And in this new movie, by the way, I did see it again just because I enjoyed it. But on the whole, all of the things negative that I had to say about it still remain. And that is, the camera is static. The action feels overly long. Not that interesting, especially because, and Peter said this many years ago, and this is probably why the scenes maybe feel the way that they do, is that they're constructed to work with an 80-year-old lead. Yeah, so maybe you should have made this movie 10 years ago, honestly.
I mean, didn't they try?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. At one point, Steven Spielberg was supposed to make this movie, but he just... I mean,
because of the movie that came out.
Oh, the last one? The fourth one.
The last one. I honestly don't.
In 2000, yeah, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull came out in 2008. There was a whole 15 years in between the fourth movie and the fifth movie. And when, I think Peter and I remember when Disney purchased Lucasfilm in 2012, they announced that they were going to develop a new Indiana Jones film.
Yeah, they did.
And I think at some point we had in our minds that it would be out in 2015. That was the year it should have been released. That was the cut. That should have been the cutoff point. But now we're in 2023.
And then didn't he get hurt too, or something?
So
like
I mean, to be fair, he gets hurt in every movie because I mean, it happened with The Force Awakens, I think, several times, and it also happened here. The point is, the point was, if that movie had come out in the 2000s, I mean, even Crystal Skull, which isn't great, has a lot of issues for sure, but the thing that Crystal Skull has that this new movie doesn't, a director that brings a skill set and capability to what this series needs. The camera should not be still. The scenes should not feel lifeless. They should not look murky, poorly lit, and out of focus, and with so much negative space on the screen. Crystal Skull, you can say however many bad things about it. The one bad thing you can't say is that it wasn't directed impeccably. The set pieces, the action is all there.
Yeah.
That's what Spielberg always brings to the films that he directs. And what Dial of Destiny needed was that and a better editor, because they weren't edited that greatly, and then also it was way too long. 2.5 hours. It should not have been 2.5 hours. You could have cut out a whole 30 minutes of this movie, as is, and been better. The point is, watching The Curse of the Black Pearl, I mean, man, it's like going back in time, honestly, and what...
But, like, not even, because I feel like that's... I mean, there's many movies like this, but I feel like that is one that, like, is timeless. And, like, you see it today, and it looks like... I mean, I can't even say that it could be made today, because the movies today look like shit.
Exactly. There's two ways in which I was thinking of when I said going back in time. It feels like... Imagine going back in time and watching somebody paint the Mona Lisa. This is what that felt like. Just going back and watching a film, and it is just perfect in every way imaginable. Effortlessly so, and entirely committed in the costumes, the actual locations that they go on, the sets, the screenplay. Every word of dialogue to all of the characters. Pitch perfect. The mechanizations in which, like, the actual action plays out, the inner mechanizations that Johnny Depp, you know, easily manipulates everybody around him. Like, it is an incredible film. It was then, and it is even more impressive now. The other way in which I meant, like, going back in time, the 2000s was an amazing decade for blockbuster filmmaking. The craft that was on display. Think of the Pirates films. Think of Lord of the Rings. Especially Lord of the Rings. The Mummy movies with Brendan Fraser. There were so many films that came out in that decade that, if nothing else, they went in and they went hard. They took chances, they took risks, and they went all the way with it. They did not half-ass it. They did not play it safe. And part of what is plaguing a lot of the blockbusters that come out today is the complete refusal to go anywhere near in that area. Yeah. For so many reasons, just even looking at The Curse of the Black Pearl is a film that could not be made today the way that it was back then. Even, I mean, first of all, they hit women several times. I mean, they're pirates. That's what's going to happen, but that probably wouldn't happen at all today. Not even remotely. But also, I mean, they make several, like, I'm not even sure they mentioned this in the last two Pirates film, 4 and 5, but, like, hey, they're pirates, they rape. I mean, that's part of their thing. And the thing is, for the first three, but the first one, it feels the most real. If you can, and that may not be the best way of saying it, but especially if you look at with,
like, the lore. Yes. Of piracy.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah, because if you look at the last two especially, they don't feel like they would happen in real life. I guess you could say that they feel more like a Disney version of Pirates of the Caribbean. They definitely, especially with the fifth movie, it kind of felt like it was becoming a parody of itself. Yeah. It didn't help that Johnny Depp was just drunk out of his mind the whole time, and they somehow kept filming. It didn't help that he was not in a great place mentally. The filming of that film happened to occur at the same time that everybody now knows of, which, if you know of a certain trial, you know what happened there. That's all I'm going to touch that. But, yeah. If you have the opportunity to go see it, go see it. They told me that... why are they doing this? Well, first of all, it is the 20th anniversary, and interestingly enough, it's kind of a little bit spooky. Yesterday, which was the day that we went to go see it, was to the day the 20th anniversary that it was released back in 2003.
How fun.
Yeah, it was so nice. And by the way, there was a lot of people in that theater.
That's so cool.
And they were all enjoying it and reacting to it like it was a brand new movie, even though they've seen it so many times. But it's such...
I love going. I think that's why I enjoy going to go watch, like, old movies, because it's just like watching it for the first time, and then the people that are there are people who like truly love these movies, because not everybody goes to see or like see them again like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just, I like it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, every experience I have with a film coming back in theaters is been, I would say, rewarding. Like, it happened earlier this year with Titanic. I went to go see that again, and everybody in there has to be a fan of it, and they've seen it so many times. But there were still, like, I want to say, people who were crying. I heard when, the moment, on the life raft, basically, Jack come back. Everybody knows that moment. But there were still people who were literally weeping.
Yeah.
In those moments.
They're showing Willy Wonka here soon. Oh my god, I'm so freaking excited.
I want to see that one.
Oh god.
I mean the actual movie. I haven't seen that one in many years, but I for sure
I used
would
to
love
watch
to
it
see that.
all the time when I was little, like to the point where like the VHS broke.
You know what would be a nice like retro double feature? Now, I don't know if Warner Brothers owns both of these films, but imagine a double feature of The Wizard of Oz and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Amazing. I think no. It's MGM.
One of them has MGM has one of them, right? Is that Wizard of Oz?
MGM has Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. Willy Wonka is WB.
Is it?
It's WB, yeah, because the new Wonka movie is WB.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But MGM, who has MGM?
MGM, technically Amazon. Amazon owns MGM now.
Okay.
So.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to keep track because if you like every few years somebody gets bought by somebody else, so you never really know like who owns the rights to something.
But that would be really fun.
Yeah.
Oh god. We should do that just on our own. That should be our 10-year reunion.
Honestly, yeah. That should, yeah, for sure. That sounds so much more exciting than what a reunion would actually entail. Really not even close. But speaking of, Pirates is not the only movie getting that treatment. This year, the Walt Disney Company celebrates its 100th anniversary, which, by the way, if you've seen the news, that's the only thing to celebrate. Literally, the company is imploding. Yeah. And everything is going down.
Bad job. So whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's kind of deserved if we're being real. But like, literally, everything is kind of imploding at Disney. But hey, you need to celebrate your 100th anniversary, I guess. So they're releasing a number of movies back in theaters. I found the list to be rather limiting and underwhelming. Do you recall what the movies were? I know two of which include The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast. Both films which, by the way, have had re-releases in the past. And I think heavily pushed re-releases too.
Well, I had sent you guys the list and I literally said, this is underwhelming. I know it's Toy Story, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Frozen, Moana.
For whatever, yeah. Moana and Frozen are very new. I don't know if they need re-releases.
And I was so confused because it's like, okay, it's 100 years. Why aren't you doing each decade, first of all? I mean, maybe even each studio, which is not happening.
No.
And then why are they all new ones in the last decade? It just didn't make any sense to me. Like, can you imagine either Treasure Planet or Atlantis getting a re-release?
That's an event.
Are you joking? They would make all their money back. They don't even have Princess and the Frog.
That's stupid. I think, to me, the obvious one, considering this is a company that is, one, celebrating its 100th anniversary, but yeah, Snow White was the first ever animated film in theaters.
And it's not on there.
Where is that one?
Cinderella. Cinderella is like the most popular princess.
You know how much money Pinocchio made over the decades every time they put it back in theaters? Like, these are no-brainers. Put out the classics, man.
Yes.
These are the real classics. Mary Poppins? Mary fucking Poppins. You telling me you wouldn't go see Mary Poppins right now? I'd leave you right now to go see Mary Poppins in the theater. Seriously.
It's and then Peter responded with, "You literally love every single one of these movies." And I'm like, that's not the point, though.
It's not the point, yeah. Yeah. Sleeping Beauty, like...
Roger Rabbit?
Yes, that's the one, yeah.
It's just a big missed opportunity. And
Hocus Pocus?
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
That's what I'm saying, like... They're
Nightmare Before
celebrating
Christmas,
the 100
too.
years, but they're doing such a shitty job in doing... Like, these things literally write themselves, and they're not doing these things.
But Alexis, isn't that basically the story of Disney these last 10 years? Is that so many of the problems that get themselves into is, yeah, these things are so easily able to course correct themselves. Like, it's literally staring you in the face, and yet you decide not to do that. For instance... Now, you may feel differently, but why would you decide to do a Haunted Mansion movie without Guillermo del Toro? First of all. Second of all, why would you invite Jared Leto to be in your Haunted Mansion movie? That's 2. 3, this may be an aside, not related to Haunted Mansion. Why are you pursuing a Tron reboot with Jared Leto? Still. That's 3.
They just leave him.
4, why are you releasing a Haunted Mansion movie that is
in the
basically...
summer.
Yes, in July. First of all, and this is where it's really suspicious. You are releasing a Haunted Mansion movie in the last week of July that is after Mission Impossible, Barbenheimer, and Comic-Con. Now, mind you, Comic-Con may not have any news this year because of the shutdown situation with the strikes going on, but at one point, I mean, I don't know how far in advance anybody thought these strikes were happening, but at one point you chose to move this to the week after Comic-Con, the week after Barbenheimer. Like, you get and also, I feel no push on the part of the studio for this movie. I forget it even exists until the trailer plays in the theater, and I'm like, you get the impression, are you just trying to bury this movie? And if you are, how bad is it?
Yeah.
By the way, the trailers have not been overly impressive, and also Peter. Well, you don't like him? I don't like him at all.
No, I don't either. And like it pisses me off because for so many years, people have been saying make movies on the attractions and not just Haunted Mansion. Haunted Mansion has always been top of the list.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the last movie that you made that was based on an attraction, it wasn't the best, but it was pretty good.
I had a lot of fun with that movie.
I did too.
Like it.
Yeah.
I even own it. I like it that much.
Yes,
it was a lot of fun.
It's not the best. It's not Pirates of the Caribbean level, but it's still pretty good, and it looked like you at least made effort.
Right.
And this one just does not. It does not look like that at all. And you could tell even just by the trailer, because with the Jungle Cruise one, the trailer was pretty great. I loved watching the trailer.
Yeah.
And this one just like. And it pisses me off because it's a fucking Haunted Mansion. Oh, God.
Also, and Peter made a great point as well about this movie. It still feels like a comedy. And granted, sure, there's going to be humor in it. You can also say that like there's humor involved in the attraction as well. Sure. But a lot of people had a big problem. Or one of their issues with the 2003... Wait, was it also 2003 or was it 2004?
I don't know.
Oh my god, is it really 20 years? I mean, I'll be honest with you. If I was given the choice to see this new one or the old one, I would prefer to see...
the old one. I like the old one.
The Eddie Murphy movie, I like. I'm sorry. People are gonna, like, kill us. I like that movie.
I did too. I mean, but, like, to be fair, that movie came out when we were kids, so obviously, like, we're gonna like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it came out 2003 as well.
And I understand them trying to make it into a comedy. Like, that's the nature of this ride. That's what the ride had always been intended to be. Well, not always, but, you know, it's what everybody's work resulted in. So I understand that, but there's like funny and cheesy and extra cheesy, and it's like,
well, I would say maybe the extra cheesy, which I'm not even sure at one point it was, but I think there's a brand of humor that is very much on its way out, and I feel audiences are heading in this direction. In that trailer, the kind of humor you see is very much tongue in cheek and like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like
it's very much a Disney
you get the
Plus
reference,
movie.
right? Yeah, you get the reference, right? Like the whole bit at the end with the Hatbox Ghost was like, that's what Disney thinks is in right now. And maybe in the last decade it was, but now it's really kind of outworn its welcome, and it repels me completely. That movie reeks to me of everything I do not want in films today. So I'm sorry, it doesn't exist to me. I'm not gonna give it the time of day. I don't need to give it the time of day.
Going back to the Del Toro thing, like it blows my mind that they said no. I will never understand.
Meanwhile, he's currently developing a live-action Frankenstein film with Netflix.
Nice. Good for him.
So he's doing well for himself. Like, and the guy always tries his best. Like, he knows, the thing that always impresses me about him is he knows very well he's going to get turned down, and then he still goes and does his pitches. Yeah. I think earlier this year he tweeted that he got like turned down 5 times in 1 week.
Jeez.
With different projects.
That's
Imagine saying no to Guillermo del Toro. By the way, he is also incredible. Do you know his film that won Best Picture and also won him Best Director, The Shape of Water, which looks amazing. He made that for $20 million.
Wow.
He made that for $20 million. Who does that? Especially with one of the many problems, not just Disney, but it feels like especially Disney, is they seemingly just let all of the budgets for all of their films get out of control. No way in hell should you have made an Indiana Jones film for $330 million. How is it that most of your movies are costing you at minimum $250 million to $300 million?
And it doesn't even show.
No.
What are you doing?
Like, I shudder to even look at what the budget for Love and Thunder was. That movie is, or even Quantumania. Should I even look up how much Quantumania cost? Because that one was like particularly awful.
That's why they keep losing money, because they just, aside from the end result being really bad, they just spend so much.
So many years and years. Also, unnecessary movies. Like, by the way, Maleficent made money, sure, but it wasn't very well received. And I think it was pretty easy that a sequel to that film was not going to do very well. Much less a sequel that came out over 5 years after. Like, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, which, by the way, in case anybody forgot, and I did, is a movie that exists. But that came out, and, well, also, like, Alice Through the Looking Glass. Like, there's so many movies that they've made in the last 10 years that you think to yourself, and it's like, why would you make this? Why would you make Into the Woods? God, that was an awful movie. They also have this thing, too. It's like where, we really do crap on Warner Brothers, particularly with the DC branch. And I would say for good reason. I mean, these last few weeks we've been going back in time and like reevaluating, like, well, The Flash did so terribly. In part, yeah, it's a bad movie, or not a great movie, but no one cared. After 10 years, no one cares about you anymore. Well, with Disney, if you separate, people haven't noticed too much because they've had Star Wars, they've had Marvel, they've had Pixar, they've had Disney Animation, and they've also have their live action remakes, which are like shiny little keys that distract you. But the live action output at the Walt Disney Picture Studio has produced some of the worst movies ever made. Some of the and by the way, they weren't like that before.
No.
We
literally just mentioned Mary Poppins and Roger Rabbit.
Hocus Pocus, Pirates of the Caribbean,
yes.
The Rocketeer, like The Parent Trap, Swiss Family Robinson. Like, there's so many old films. Race to Witch Mountain. This is a studio that would have hits every decade. Have really good movies out.
And they made it a point to have their live action movies be good because they knew that, people saw them as, the studio that makes cartoons.
Right.
So they made it a point to have their live action movies be quality movies.
Yeah.
And it's just not that anymore.
No. And I feel like all of the live action movies that I personally enjoyed, I could maybe count on one hand. I think of Mary Poppins Returns, which I think of Christopher Robin, Saving Mr. Banks. I think of the two Muppet movies, Muppets Most Wanted and The Muppets.
Cruella.
Yes, I mean, that's so dumb, but I love that movie.
I do too.
I love
it.
Oh, man, Peter hates that movie so much. Like, whatever, man. Cruella's awesome. This is so much fun. What else? Jungle Cruise?
Yeah, Jungle Cruise. I don't know. But, because see, like, people are going to be like, live action, Marvel, Star Wars. But no, like, that doesn't count. It's not
That's a different studio. Different people had those stories, those movies. That they're not the same people. We're talking about the Walt Disney Pictures. Now, Disney Plus, maybe you could say this. I mean, Hocus Pocus 2 wasn't terrible. I enjoyed it for what it was. But, I mean, Disney Plus has had an even worse track record. I
never saw the Disenchanted movie.
Don't. Enchanted. But then again, I'm not even sure that one counts because that was like
the Dalmatian movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many movies.
Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yes,
that's a really good one.
They had a lot of fun ones.
Yeah,
they had a lot of fun ones, and even to this day, like, it's not that difficult. I still think. I mean, you mentioned earlier about doing re-releases of like Atlantis and Treasure Planet, but I always felt like, well, those could be really cool concepts to explore a live-action adaptation of.
Yeah. I don't know why they haven't. If anything, those should be the ones that they go for, because a lot of people don't remember the movies, so they can kind of... They have more room to change things if they wanted to go that route.
But you know what it also is, Alexis? They also have become a lot like Marvel, where they don't hire any name directors.
Yeah.
They just hire people you've kind of never heard of, or people who've made one or two movies, one or two indie films, one or two like new names. And they're doing the same thing where it's like, well, it's not really your movie. Like, I mean, look, what's the recent example of this? Earlier this year, Sarah Polley, director of Women Talking, won the Best Adapted Screenplay. And guess what? Later on that year, it was announced that she would be developing a live-action adaptation of Bambi, which, again, who the hell wants that? But that's the playbook. It's like, I mean, if you're going to do... I mean, the ideas write themselves, and the people who would be interested write themselves. You have at your disposal Andrew Stanton, Brad Bird, Gore Verbinski. These people are talented. Why aren't you calling them?
Joking? Are you freaking joking? Oh my god.
Why aren't you calling them?
We never talked about the Pixar layoffs.
Oh, fuck. That was
insane.
Ahead.
That was crazy.
I mean, it's incredibly sad, especially with a person that is responsible for saving Toy Story 2.
Fuck.
Was it 2 or the first one? It's 2, right?
2.
Toy Story 2, yeah. The person for having that movie saved when somebody else stupidly deleted it, she got dismissed. That's all very sad. That's all very awful. But you know, Disney has also gotten themselves in other kind of, like, they're so out of step with reality. They inadvertently jump face forward into scandals that are so easily avoidable. Now, for one, you can say it's not just them, but overall, they all share in the disgust, in my disgust anyway. Every studio and every company now is following David Zaslav's lead in just scrubbing things off their streaming services in order to, one, save a buck, and two, by saving that buck, they deprived the people and the talent that worked on those shows any kind of residual checks, which is, by the way, in large part why there's strikes happening right now, because they're doing that shit. By the way, because they went and did that, they inadvertently made one of the biggest blunders I've ever seen, which was in the beginning of Pride Month, including the Howard documentary.
Yes.
Initially as part of the things that would be scrubbed off Disney Plus. And then they were shamed into, saying,
Oh, kidding.
Yeah, just kidding. It was a mistake. It was never going to go. Fuck you. We know what you meant. And you're just like trying to save face here. Can you at least admit that and own up to it instead of like trying to like gaslight us with like, oh, it was a mistake. We never meant to do that. What has this company turned into? Like, it is like, do you remember what it was like talking about Disney in the beginning of this podcast?
Yes.
How exciting it was, how much like we held on to like the sense of magic and the people that worked there, and now it's fair. I mean, honestly, the way that it's going, you think about this. In 2019, they had at least $6 billion grossing films. And now they're not having any, for one. And they're kind of beginning to lose money on their films. You could say this is a long time coming. You can say this is a reckoning. But really, I would say that, for one, no one stays on top for that long and not forever. I know that in the mid-2010s, all of us were following the numbers and the market shares, and we all saw that Disney was like on top every single year, in large part because of Star Wars and Marvel, mind you. But they got there and they stayed there for a bit, and it seemed like it would just be that way. I mean, you could make the argument that they were never mightier when they literally, and I cannot believe they did this. They dropped 70. Was it 70 billion? Yeah, it was $70 billion or 70 million. It was a lot. Was it 70 billion to buy Fox?
I think it was. I would go with the higher
number. It was $70 billion to buy Fox. I don't even know why they did that. Again, in retrospect, what should have been done was the government should have gotten involved and no. If Fox is going out of business, you guys have to bid for what you want, but you cannot just swallow up an entire studio. Because really all that Disney wanted was Avatar and X-Men.
Yeah.
That's all they were interested in. But for that, they swallowed up all of Fox. And, well, to this very day, we've yet to see the full benefit of that. I mean, what have they done with it? Like a shitty Home Alone remake that they put on Disney Plus that is awful?
It's crazy because you would think that they would learn from their past.
Right.
Because their track record is very up and down. Like they, we see them as high and mighty because of the internet. We see the numbers, we see what's going on, but and the casual viewers, they see that, so they're like, oh, Disney's always been on top. No, that's not the case at all. They were always seen as like the lesser studio because, again, the studio that makes cartoon movies. Right. They've always been seen that way, and they've had to fight to climb to the top, and that's, admirable. But you would think that, yes, they're on top, but they would prepare for the worst. And it seems like they were on top, and they, in their minds, they're like, we're staying here forever. because they're going down, and it's worse than it's ever been.
And look, karma's a bitch. But let's just say, and you know, Bob Chapek or no Bob Chapek, R.I.P. But regardless of that, the company really turned its back on exhibitors during the COVID pandemic. And they weren't alone in that, for sure. But ultimately what happened was this, and I think this is a nice way to transition to one of the other big failures right now, which is, and I don't know how else you can look at it as a failure, but Disney Plus is looking at, I think this is the lowest point Disney Plus has ever been. Because, I mean, it had a big bang at the start, and then because of COVID, everybody was glued into it. But here's the thing. And 3 years ago, we were all there. We were all there in real time. And we were yelling at the top of our lungs. What are you people doing? Not just you people as in you, Disney, but all of the studios. What are you doing? What am I referencing? Well, at the time, they all just decided for themselves that, well, at the very minimum, movie theaters are not going to be around for maybe 1.5 to 2 years. So, and maybe this is the opportunity for us to ditch them and then just completely, you know, throw all of what we have into the streaming thing. And so what began to happen was every single studio prioritize their streaming service as the number one thing. What and I'm not even, we can laugh at it now, but I think what has been made really clear, Alexis, is these guys actually thought movie theaters were a thing of the past, and that from then on out it was going to be whoever won the streaming wars. And so what they then endeavored to do was to dump as much cash as they had into the programming to, in whatever way they could, convince people in their minds that their streaming service was the best. They even, some studios, chose to dump a lot of the holdover theatrical content on the streaming services themselves. Disney did this. Warner Brothers did this. And I think to this very day, we're seeing the consequences of that. It's between Disney deciding to put their movies on Disney Plus day and date in theaters, or also whatever, you know, when it was called HBO Max, what Warner Brothers did with HBO Max and their movies. What benefit has there been for any of that to this very day? What just on the movie side? What I mean, all that really did was hurt both studios and hurt all future movies that have come out because I feel like every film that has come out post 2020, 2021 has made significantly less than it would have if they didn't make those horrible decisions. And you can make the argument that clearly no other studio has been affected more than this than Pixar.
Yeah.
And so they really thought that streaming was the next big thing, but it turns out they forgot that it wasn't going to be profitable for a very long time. And so now the chickens have come home to roost, and everyone is seeing, oh my God, there's no profit to be made here.
No.
And we said this. We said this in real time. What are you thinking? There is no profit to be made. By the way, one of the things that the actors and writers are demanding right now in these strikes is for these studios and companies to publicize the actual ratings and viewership figures of these shows and movies that were made for streaming. And they don't want to do that because once they do that, they're going to expose their failure to the world for the millions and millions of dollars that they poured into just individual programming. I mean, think about how much a Marvel Disney Plus show cost. What, $50 million? $100 million a piece? I think, what was it? The Falcon and the Winter Soldier had, what, $30 million an episode?
I think so, yeah.
You can't rationalize the money you've spent on these things. And I'm sorry to Bob Iger. I mean, we've always said that, you know, he's a big reason for why Disney got to the top in the first place. I mean, he made a number of strategic acquisitions. And the content that was coming out of those studios definitely spoke for itself. But now, everybody's kind of woken up to the idea that Bob Iger kind of walked all of us off a cliff. All of this even happened because he tried to acquire Netflix. Don't forget this. He tried to acquire Netflix, and they said no. And he was like, well, I'll make my own streaming service. And how has that worked out for him? Well, it turns out, now, mind you, this is just one particular outlet reporting this, but just today, the new numbers released by, they're calling it Just Watch, but apparently, Disney Plus has fallen to 4th place as far as which streaming service has the most market share, fallen behind Amazon Prime, Netflix, and, of all things, Max, which, by the way, if you're falling behind Max, that's not good, because by all indications, Max isn't doing that well to begin with. And now, Disney, you've fallen behind Max. That was what? In the midst of every other studio imploding, every project imploding. And by the way, the one thing you've always had in your corner was your theme parks. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait. Have you not seen the recent numbers that showing Universal Studios theme parks are catching up? They're closing the gap. They already were because of Wizarding World and so many other investments in their theme parks, but now more than ever, because of all of those detrimentally stupid-ass decisions, money-grubbing decisions made at all of your parks, and I bet you that's what's driving this. I don't know what else. You've literally priced people out.
Strike going on in Disneyland Paris right now.
Yeah, it's funny. That's so funny.
You know what? But go France.
Good for them. Good for them. But the thing is this. I personally feel that Disney has successfully priced out a lot of their fans from their parks. And where are they going to go? To Universal. So the one thing they had left was the theme park. And now that is... They fucked everything up. Now you can make the argument that, well, Bob Chapek had a lot to do with it. Yeah, he did. But he wasn't alone. Mm-hmm. He was not alone in that. Everybody gets to share in this disaster. And, I mean, for one, it's good that Disney's not on top anymore. No one should stay on top that long. But considering the large number of mistakes that they've made and also kind of awful practices in which they've engaged with these last, maybe ever, they kind of deserve what they're getting.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this. Like the latest live-action remake, Little Mermaid, is only going to make half of what it was basically expected to do. It did not and will not cross $1 billion when the other Renaissance films, the gold standard ones, mind you, crossed that one easily. It did not. And then they greenlight Bambi. There's a Lilo and Stitch remake coming. They greenlit that Moana live action remake with The Rock coming in. These things are not going to work. The Little Mermaid kind of broke your Teflon. Like, that's it. This is The Little Mermaid. You're telling me that couldn't make $1 billion worldwide? Time's running out for you guys.
Yeah. They need to... I know that I brought up the layoffs earlier. I think it wasn't so much that the layoffs happened. I understand that they're trying to make cuts. I just think they're doing it in the wrong way.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things that they will never do, and no company will ever do, because we live in a capitalistic society, is, well, you know, instead of, like, destroying so many people's livelihoods, the executives who take in millions of dollars every year on salary alone, not even including the extra they make on bonuses, they could very well decide, how about we'll just work for nothing because, hey, we're rich. We're filthy sticking rich. We don't have to ever work a day in our lives. Our wealth is to the point that no one in the company will ever make anywhere close to what we make. So how about, instead of like destroying so many livelihoods and kicking people out of their jobs, how about we'll just take a pay cut and spread the wealth around and keep them employed and keep them fed? But you'll notice that no major news outlet or reporter will even utter that thought because, of course, the capitalistic mindset. Yeah, it's never going to happen because the people, we all have decided that that world is too pie in the sky. Mm-hmm. It's too humane for us. That's what we've decided. Okay, great. That's one thing they could do. They will never do that. So what it will do? Oh yeah, we'll fire the people who make the stuff for us.
Yeah. But what I was trying to say is, like, they don't need to do that. Just literally start from scratch. Like, cancel all of the things that you guys are releasing. Maybe, keep one or two that you're about to finish, whatever. But don't release so many movies a year.
Yeah.
Don't work on so many things. Again, just start with the basics. Go back to the basics. Like, it's not working, and you guys know that it's not working, and you guys keep making these decisions that are not good, and it's so, like, obvious that they're not good and that they're not gonna work. And I don't know how they don't see this.
By the way, that's not even getting into the really hopeless situation Marvel Studios is in right now, or even Lucasfilm. How can they not make a Star Wars movie? It's like,
because they're making the shows.
Yeah, maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they shouldn't. So yeah, it's kind of, yeah, they should just cancel. And they probably are, I think, going to do that at some point, because if you've noticed, it's been kind of radio, for the things that are not already filming or in production, it's been radio silent from Marvel. And you can make the argument that in large part because of the strikes, they're not going to go to Comic-Con, but still, even if those weren't happening, I don't even know why Kevin Feige would want to go to Comic-Con, because I think, for one, that big slate he announced last year, I think a lot of it's not going to be made, for one. And two, they've got a lot of problems going on between Jonathan Majors' trial. I think they're going to wait for that trial and see what happens to see what they decide to do with Kang. And Kang's supposed to be a big character, and their movie's coming up, so they've delayed the Avengers films, which I don't mind. Yeah, delay those things. I don't even know what you're doing. They might even know what they're doing at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've it's been belabored already at this point. They're in a bad spot right now, Disney overall. And I mean, I don't know. I don't really have too much sympathy for them. I feel like a lot of
I do, but only because of the people working on these projects.
Oh, for the people, I have plenty of sympathy for. But for the executives and the people who were in leadership, I have no sympathy whatsoever.
No.
I mean, it was your decisions that led to this in the first place. That's kind of where we are right now. And again, it's not exactly like Disney is alone in that. A lot of people right now are kind of imploding because of terrible decisions. But before we get off of that, I wanted to ask you. There's actually something that I am looking forward to coming out of the Marvel umbrella, and this did make news today, which was the filming off of Deadpool 3. Deadpool 3 is going to be interesting because it itself is going to be a multiverse movie, which, whoa, what a revolutionary concept there. Let's make a multiverse comic book movie. But I think there's good reason to hope that this might actually be good. because the directors never really mattered the most when it came to those movies. It was Ryan Reynolds that mattered the most. Yeah. And I think he's been doing a good job maneuvering around this situation. So Deadpool 2 came out. It did very well, from what I remember anyway, at the box office. And then the year after, Disney bought the whole studio. And so he had to really, I'm sure for years there, kind of thread the needle to make sure that not only would they make his third movie, but also let it be mostly the way that he would want it to be. And that was not easy. It took years to convince Iger and Feige, but it seemingly worked where they did confirm this would be rated R, for whatever that means. We'll see how R it'll be. But it might work after all, because the idea, and it was announced a while back that this would be basically a Deadpool Wolverine movie, which, I mean, everyone would be like, yeah, that's an amazing idea. And, you know, I think reacted positively to the news. Well, today, he himself, I think people have suspected because the strike is about to happen, so he had to do some promotion. And maybe because the paparazzi were there, and there was so much that came out today. So he was like, okay, I'll just put it out there. Well, for one, in the last few days, his updated suit came out, and it was more of a bright red than his was. And I gotta say, I kind of dig it. I think a little bit more. I think, because, I mean, I like how it was before, but it was definitely a bit desaturated. Yeah. Here, it's like, I think I like this costume more. There's one thing I'll give this version of it. I like this costume more. Well, today, what Ryan Reynolds posted on social media was not just him in costume, but Hugh Jackman. I don't know why I said Henry Jackman. He's somebody else. Hugh Jackman in costume with the yellow suit from, everybody knows, the X-Men animated series. Henry Jackman. That's actually a real person, by the way. He's a composer. Oh. Yeah, I know. I don't know why I was thinking that. Hugh Jackman. I didn't think they would ever do it. I know. Honestly. I didn't think they would ever do that, but I gotta be honest with you, the more I look at it, the more I'm liking it. Now, it may be that he's not wearing it for the whole movie, and
there's probably multiverse things.
Yeah, I feel like, well, by the way, if you're so inclined, and if you don't want to wait the 10 months, because this movie comes out in 10 months, if you don't want to wait, you can just go online and find those leaks. Because from what I understand, the movie's already out there, like the leaks of what's going to be. And it basically is going to be a Deadpool X-Men, like, reunion for all the old ones. And so it's going to feel like the final movie in the X-Men Fox universe to tie it all up with Deadpool and all the old ones. So that means Halle Berry, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, everyone.
I'm so freaking excited.
That's going to be amazing. And I mean, I can't wait to see what their costumes look like, too, if they're going to be in this movie in suits. So that's going to be so much fun. And of course, the returning cast of Deadpool and Deadpool 2 are coming back here, too. So, and what made me laugh so hard, and I know it's kind of sad, and I understand people who were disgusted by it, but what made me laugh so hard was, and I'll respect it to an extent that they actually made a figure of this and not just be CG, but you saw the image of the 20th Century Fox logo.
It's fucked up.
That's so fucked up.
It's so fucked up.
But how can you not laugh at it, though? I mean, that's Deadpool. That's what Deadpool does. You could hear the joke already instantly by just watching that.
Look at that. So fucked up, dude.
Yeah, it really is. So, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling very good about this movie. Go figure. There's every time I think I'm out of Marvel, they bring me back in with one more.
But it's X-Men.
That's true. It's more of an X-Men movie than an MCU movie. I'm hoping it's not going to be more of a Kevin Feige fess situation. So yeah. But when I was saying before the whole Deadpool thing, I just wanted to chime in on that briefly. from one disaster to the next, and we briefly mentioned this earlier, Alexis, I want to ask you, how has it been like reading the headlines these last few weeks of how historically poor the returns for The Flash have been? You're already laughing.
I mean, I feel like the thing that you guys haven't, like, touched on for the most part, like, because you guys say, like, it's a bad movie, that's why people aren't going. And you guys have mentioned that, you know, the whole Ezra of it all is also a reason. But I think that that's the main reason why people aren't going. Not
Ezra
just,
Miller.
Yeah, like, not... I don't think the main reason is because it's a bad movie. I think it's because of Ezra Miller.
Well, I don't think the reason people didn't go was because it was a bad movie. To be fair, most people didn't watch this movie at all. They didn't go see it. My main argument was the reason people didn't watch this film, yes, in part Ezra Miller. I don't think that's the main reason, though. I think what happened is 10 years of so many movies that failed like, to connect with audiences. For better or for... Look, just putting Ezra Miller to the side. His portrayal of the Flash has never been popular. The Zack Snyder characters have never been popular because the Zack Snyder movies, the DC Zack Snyder movies, have never been good. They've never connected, and they've all, across the board, consistently failed to make a substantial profit. They all underperformed. Man of Steel, BVS, yes, Justice League, but then also his own HBO Max Justice League didn't move the needle in any way at all. The only one of these movies that was able to crawl to any kind of success was Aquaman and Wonder Woman. Everything else, for the most part, that was, directly linked to Zack Snyder or the Snyderverse spectacularly failed. And so the idea that you'd make a movie with this version of The Flash after a whole 10 years of miserable failure, also, by the way, that features a third act that is basically the third act of Man of Steel, which no one really likes or didn't like at that point. I think and it's really sad that Michael Keaton couldn't move the needle at all, but I think it's a combination of the fact that those movies came out too long ago at that point. That's one thing. But Ezra Miller is the other thing in the room for sure. My belief is people have never liked these characters and they're done. Most people didn't watch this movie. And the ones that did were like, it's whatever.
It is.
That's what I think is what happened. Ezra Miller is because of his controversy, he couldn't do any press, and neither could any of the other actors.
It's insane to me that they had him walk the red carpet. That is crazy. Because,
you know what's even crazier, Alexis? David Zaslav, the reason why that even happened was because David Zaslav was under the deluded impression that the movie was, first of all, good, and that it was going to strike a chord with audiences, so much so that I'm sure up until the first numbers came back, I'm so sure Zaslav was thinking, maybe there's a way we can spin this if it's successful enough to keep Ezra around. I'm sure that was going to happen. I'm sure he was thinking in his mind there was the slimmest of possibilities that could happen. Why else would Andy Muschietti, the director of the film, praise Ezra Miller weeks before the movie even came out as somebody he would work with again?
That's insane. And you know what's funny though? I don't know if you guys saw the thing on HBO Max, the 100 Years of Warner Brothers thing.
No.
Okay, it's interesting because like there is a lot of things that I didn't know. Mm-hmm. So I mean, my favorite episode is the first one because they talk about how Warner Brothers came to be, which is like it's an interesting story. But then they go to, I haven't seen the last episode, I believe, but then they go to like through each decade, and by the end, you see that a lot of the people that they work with are always the same directors, same actors, and they're like, and they say, like, we're a big family, we support each other, we, you know, there's a reason why we have these people come back. Mm-hmm. But it all seemed very culty to me.
Oh, really?
I don't know, like, I just got that vibe. And my main, like, thing about that is how much they praise I can't pronounce his last name. Kubrick. But not once did they mention the bad things with him, which was interesting because they do highlight some bad things that happened in the company, which I appreciate. You know, we need more of that. But obviously it's not going to be like the highlight of everything. But they do. Like in the first episode, they talk about, I think it was their first movie, their big hit, which was like way in the early like 1900s.
Right.
And it was a movie that featured blackface in it. And they talk about it for like a good while, and kind of like the impact that had on the company and things like that. So like they do talk about the negatives, but like with this person in particular, they keep mentioning how he's a artiste and, you know, a genius and this and that, but they don't mention anything bad. And it's like, no. And so that kind of, and then with the whole Ezra thing, it's like, okay, like, you guys just like to sweep things under the rug, and like, no, it doesn't work.
Well, that's their MO, right? That's what they've been doing. And that's what they were hoping to do with this movie. I sincerely believe that what their hope was, this movie would make... I mean, I think Peter was correct when he said they felt legitimately they had a hit on their hands. They really thought they had a hit on their hands. You saw it.
I did.
What do you think?
I thought, and it, I mean, I thought that Ezra Miller was a good actor, because, I mean, the few things that I've seen him in before, aside from The Flash, because I feel like you can't
Not Harry Potter?
Oh, I forgot about that. I blocked those movies out of my mind. Like, I thought he was pretty good, and then this, and honestly, he was really annoying in the movie. And then, like, it doesn't help that, I mean, because I watched, like, the animated series, and I watched, you know, the Flash show and things like that, so I've seen different variations of the Flash, and this one just, he was annoying.
Yeah, he was very annoying.
Yeah.
It got old really quick.
Yeah.
And it was like, we have to watch the whole movie like this?
Yeah. And then it just like shit. I didn't understand, because obviously, like, I know that they're doing Flashpoint, but then, like, the ending was really weird.
Yes.
I didn't understand, like, did he go back to his, like, did he fix it? Like, I don't know. It was confusing.
I mean, you can make the argument that the movie ends and you're like, what was the point of that?
Yeah.
What was the point of any of that?
Because I thought that they were going to reset everything.
Right?
But that just didn't happen at all.
No. For years, we heard nothing about that. They were going to use this movie to recalibrate their DC universe and swap out the actors that were leaving.
It doesn't make any sense.
It didn't make any sense.
Yeah. I ate up the whole Superman thing, though. I'm sorry.
Superman?
This whole year I've been on a Superman kick.
Oh. Okay.
And seeing all the Supermans, oof. And then Nicolas Cage, oof.
I see what you mean. Okay. Okay, that's understandable. Go watch Superman and Lois while you can.
Please.
Coming back for fourth season?
Yes.
Yes,
Hopefully not the last, but yes.
Hopefully not the last. You wanted to talk about Sound of Freedom.
Ah.
Did you want me to read this article before?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rolling Stone published this piece July 7th. The headline is, Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms. The QAnon-tinged thriller about child trafficking is designed to appeal to the conscience of a conspiracy-addled boomer. This is what it says. The familiar words had appeared on screen, and an elderly man had taken it upon himself to read them out loud to the rest of a sizable audience seated for... Wait, this actually happened? Wait a minute.
Wait, wait. Say it again.
The familiar words had appeared on screen, and an elderly man had taken it upon himself to read them aloud to the rest of a sizable audience seated for a matinee showing of the anti-child trafficking thriller Sound. He's saying that an old man read the words out loud to the theater as the movie started. I think when the movie starts, there are some words that appear.
Stop it. Oh my God, how embarrassing.
Yeah, that's what this person is saying. Sound of Freedom starring Jim Caviezel?
I don't fucking know.
For the seasoned moviegoer, this phrase is a joke. We know that cinema will stretch almost any truth to the breaking point, and the rank insincerity of such a pronouncement is the foundation of the prankish opening titles of Fargo. But this crowd, I could tell, would view the events depicted over the next 2+ hours as entirely literal.
Yes.
Caviezel, best known for the best tortured death in Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, has become a prominent figure on the conspiracist right, giving speeches and interviews in which he hints at an underground holy war between patriots and a sinister legion of evildoers who are harvesting the blood of children. It's straight up QAnon stuff, right down to the catchphrases like, "The storm is upon us." Here, he gets to act out some of that drama by playing a fictionalized version of Tim Ballard, head of the anti-sex trafficking nonprofit Operation Underground Railroad, or OUR. That's what they're abbreviated. In a feature film that casts the operator as a Batman-style savior for kids sold into the sex trade. Ballard himself has dabbled in Q-adjacent conspiracy theories, such as the Wayfair trafficking hoax, while his organization has far-right affinities and a long record of distorting its botched raids, which rely on bizarre tactics like asking psychics where to find victims for rescue. Ballard, Caviezel, and others of their ilk had primed the public to accept Sound of Freedom as a documentary rather than delusion by fomenting moral panic for years over this grossly exaggerated epidemic of child sex trafficking. Much of it funneling people into conspiracist rabbit holes and QAnon communities. In short, I was at the movies with people who were there to see their worst fears confirmed. Sound of Freedom lives up to that anticipation. It's a stomach-turning experience, fetishizing the torture of its child victims and lingering over lush preludes to their sexual abuse. At times, I had the uncomfortable sense that I might be arrested myself just for sitting through it. Nonetheless, the mostly white-haired audience around me could be relied on to gasp, moan in pity, mutter condemnations, applaud, and bellow amen at moments of righteous fury, as when Ballard declares that God's children are not for sale. This is a thing?
Let me tell you.
Oh, God.
This happened word for word.
Really?
I'm not kidding you. Okay. So my dad had told me about this movie. Sorry, is there more?
There is, but I can wait. Go ahead.
So my dad told me about this movie. And I saw the trailer. That was the main line in the trailer. And I immediately started laughing. I was like, you've got to be joking. And it's like, okay, because I was talking to David about it too. I'm not a religious person. I, in fact, dislike most of that. Like, it just gives me the ick. You do you. I don't care.
Right. And you do you, and that's perfectly fine.
Yes.
You're an American, you have the rights as anybody else does.
Yes.
This country was founded on freedom of religion and freedom of religion, okay? And if you don't like that, go fuck yourself.
Yes. I just don't agree with a lot of the things that these people do, or certain people do, which I have a right as well to do so.
Freedom of speech,
I
man.
can't bring myself to, like, empathize or be okay or, you know, with certain people. But so I just kind of step away, right? Like, I'm like, obviously, like, I don't want you to push stuff on me, so I'm not going to push stuff on you.
So you're saying you avoid religious groups and religious people.
That's just how I see it.
Right.
And so
which, by the way, to be fair, those same people and groups oftentimes avoid or ostracise or inflict hate upon different groups of people in this country, and in this world. Which
is insane to me. Yeah. Because they're, you know, supposed to be...
Your approach is live and let live. You guys do you, but I'm not going to be, you know, near you. Their approach is those people are damned and we're going to go and inflict hate on them.
Yes. But they're the better people, right?
Supposedly. So...
Saw the trailer, was like, what the fuck is this? Saw what it was about, and I was like, okay, we'll see. 'Cause, I'm not, like, obviously, like, this is something that's happening. It's
right. Child sex trafficking is an issue as tale as all this time.
Yes, like, it's nothing new. It's not, but it's just something that people like to throw under the rug because it's uncomfortable.
Ignore it.
I appreciate that they're trying to shine more of a light on it, right? Okay. We go into the movie. The movie studio, first of all, is called Angel.
Oh, that's Roche.
And I was like, okay.
The same studio, by the way, that has, they've had some success in recent years with crowdsource funding seasons of a TV show called The Chosen. So a lot of people of faith, that's their favorite show, and apparently it's gotten a bit of notoriety, and that they recently made a deal with, of all places, the CW to broadcast those seasons on their channel. But by the way, though, the CW is like, well, it's seen better days.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's never really seen a good day, but it's seen better days, and I think WB is looking to get rid of that. I think.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Okay. Oh, let me tell you. Are you ever gonna watch this movie?
No.
Okay. Let me tell you.
Well, you're telling me about, like, going into this movie. I want to hear your experience walking in and who you found yourself around while watching this thing.
So we go in and it's like actually it was a pretty packed theater. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I legit thought we were gonna be alone.
No,
because they made it a point for this movie not to have any, like, marketing or anything. It was just gonna be word of mouth. Apparently this movie took 5 years to
make.
not to make, to put in the theaters.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because apparently people were fighting them on it, which after seeing the movie, I guess I could kind of see, because as the article said, how he felt he should be arrested looking at this. Yeah, I felt the same way at some point. There's a scene where he's literally watching, like, they made it a point for us to know that he has to watch these kids get raped.
Oh my god.
Yes. That's part of his job.
And you saw that?
Well, we saw his face while hearing everything that was going on.
Oh.
So you can see why this movie took so long for it to hit the theaters. It's just so funny that they think that this is gonna be, like, impactful, but it's like, it just made me think that you guys are icky.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously kept mentioning God, whatever, and literally every single time you would hear people, amen.
In the theater?
Yes.
Oh
I couldn't stop laughing. It was so bad. I felt so uncomfortable being there. So when
why did you go?
Because my dad wanted to see it.
Oh, well, that doesn't surprise me, considering.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I see why now. But
I wonder who recommended it to him.
His buddies.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant. I mean, you got to keep track of the company you keep, and knowing the company he keeps. Yeah, with conservatives, they don't at all realize this, but, like, it's like talking to a hive mind. Like, so as soon as it's one thing and they all latch onto it, it's like, oh, apparently, honestly, like, it oftentimes feels like if you're a conservative, you're like part of a religion where, like, oh, this is the thing that's popular now, so we have to go see this and support it. That's how they act.
Yeah.
So, which, I mean, that turns me off, because I personally feel, I mean, the country is conservative enough, thank you. I don't need to support conservative businesses and again, especially since in the middle of Pride Month of all places, the Supreme Court, told us that we can discriminate against gay people. Well, I mean, hey, fuck you, right? So I don't need in this time to go and support the people who are kind of responsible for this in the first place.
Yes.
So,
when that guy comes out, the main guy, they show him in a car, and then they at the bottom name the location. Guess where they're at?
California?
Calexico. We saw that, and literally the three of us just go, oh.
For those not aware, Calexico happens to be a town that is in the county that I reside in here in California. Again, we're a place that no one's ever heard of unless you're from it.
You watched this movie?
Yeah, unless you watched this movie. Anyway, you were saying?
But yes.
I
And then they show San Isidro.
Oh, great.
Fun times. Even though, I mean, Mexicali
really
was literally right there.
Yeah.
But they went all the way to Tijuana.
Great stuff.
So yeah, we continue with the movie, and again, word for word is exactly what the article said. That's all of my feelings as well. This guy just, like, his line of why he was doing things was, what if it was your kids? He literally quit his job. They say, you're about to retire. You're not gonna get any of your stuff. But he quits anyways, even though he has 5 kids that are under the age of like 15 probably.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to Colombia or something, I don't fucking know, to save this little girl, because he is like, he thinks he's Tony Stark or something. He gets into like this big like drug dealers like area, but it's like in a forest, like deep inside a forest, like that nobody could get in. Basically, he like somehow gets in. The actor's so bad. I couldn't. It just made me cringe. He's so bad. The kids in this movie, though, they were really good. They were really, really good.
Well, this does happen every few years where there'll be a movie made by conservatives for conservative audiences. Remember back when in 2015, I want to say, or maybe it was 2016, when Trump was running for office the first time, Michael Bay released his Benghazi movie. And if you recall, Benghazi was a scandal that Hillary was involved with because she happened to be the Secretary of State at the time. But anyway, they made a Benghazi movie, and Trump literally took people out to the movies because apparently it was an anti-Hillary movie, even though it wasn't. But when they hear Benghazi, they think, fuck Hillary. That's how they think. What can I say here? What you said there about that line, that tagline, I don't know if it was a tagline, but what if this was your kids? Fully acknowledging, of course, that, and as I've already have done in this discussion several times, that human sex trafficking is, first of all, evil. And second of all, a very serious issue that has existed for all of time. It continues to, exist. And I think an argument can be made not enough is being done to address that issue very clearly.
But then again, it's also, it's not okay to depict it in a way where it's literally a superhero movie. Or they want to treat it as a superhero movie.
That's disgusting. That's very disgusting. And from what I'm hearing, the images that you're saying, it sounds very exploitative at that. Yes, it is an issue that needs to be addressed, but guess what? Every issue that exists today needs to be addressed and is not being addressed because the powers that be are choosing not to address those issues because they're slaves to their corporate owners in Wall Street and corporate power in corporate America. Both political parties are captured by it, which is why nothing is being addressed. The people in power are not going to do anything about it, and we're all going to go into oblivion. That's the all of this into a nutshell. But as far as that tagline about what if this was your kids, keep in mind that, of course, the audiences that are primarily seeing this movie are also using that for not just, when they say that, it's not exclusively with human sex trafficking in mind. Unless you've been living under a rock right now, the political right has successfully been able to get their supporters to act like the people from Beauty and the Beast, which was basically from a fucking mob, and, start this new wave of hate against, particularly trans people and trans kids, but for the most part, anybody that falls into the umbrella of LGBTQ+, right now, all over the country. And it's not just, gay rights issues or trans rights issues or protect trans kids, all those things. But it also happens to delve into the area of like banning books. And all of this happens to be a catch-all phrase to have a right-wing push on America as a whole. And especially when it comes to issues that, of course, don't pertain to child sex trafficking, but the point that I'm trying to make is these people probably equate the existence of trans kids with the seriousness of child sex trafficking. Yeah. They probably think that they're both equally bad, which is horrendous and disgusting and awful. And by the way, the same people that went to go see this film that happens to have such questionable things happen in it would would happily inspect the genitals of trans kids.
Yep.
So that's why all of it is just so fucking
icky.
disgusting.
I felt I'm telling you, I felt disgusting watching this movie. I felt so icky coming out of it. And then I guess like the thing that I couldn't get out of my head is what I told you earlier, that like, okay, you're making this movie about this issue, but the type of people that made this movie, because not only did they mention the religious aspect, but they also mentioned movie studios and things like that. Two of the biggest people that contribute to this type of, to these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's just, it blows my mind. It blows my mind that
what
like...
What did they say?
They, like... well, at the end, they do like the end credit scene of, saying that they purchased a lot of tickets so that people can go see this movie for free because they think it's important, blah, blah, blah. But they start quoting Steve Jobs. Okay. They mention, like, it's a religious movie. They mention God the whole time, but it's like, okay, there's a lot of that going on in that, so I don't know what you're doing. And then they start mentioning, like, thank you to, like, the movie studios that helped us bring this movie to life, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, child stars are a thing, and they're not, it's like the same thing. I don't know. It's just, there's so many things that I'm just like...
You know what's rich, though? Where are all the right-wing firebrand YouTube channels and ghouls that inhabit the alt-right, whether it be on Twitter? Where are they all of a sudden when there's a very woke movie like this?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, nobody knows what woke is, and everybody has a different definition of what woke is. And by the way, woke should not be inherently a bad term or a good one. I feel like if you're somebody who complains about things being woke, you probably have a lot of things wrong with you. And you need to get yourself in check and really try and like be more of an empathetic person if that's what you're complaining about. But the gist is, people who for the last few years have attacked a lot of Hollywood films for being woke, oftentimes their main criticism really comes down to, this film has progressive politics. I, as a conservative, am offended that you are trying to indoctrinate me with progressive politics. And I feel like I'm on the wrong side of history. First of all, you are. But second of all, that's mainly what they get pissed off about, is that their personal politics are being, basically defunct or attacked, really, with these films that happen to align more with, progressive politics. Almost as if progressive politics happens to be more with, happens to lie with sympathy and human beings. But hey, I guess that's not, clicking there. But my point here is, well, this movie very clearly is a message movie, and the studio basically just came out and said, hey, we bought tickets so that we can spread this message. But wait a minute, isn't that exactly what the very thing that these people have been complaining for years? But well, wait a minute. Okay, but why aren't the accusations coming this time? Is it because the main characters are white? Is it because it's catering mainly to a white audience? Is it maybe because, oh, this happens to have a message they support and they want to spread out there? But wait a minute. I thought you guys said that was SJW politics. I thought you said that was being woke. Was spreading a message out there in movies, and I thought you were saying that politics have no business being in movies, and I thought you said that movies are not political. So where are you? It's almost as if you're full of shit. Not a peep.
Nope.
They were probably too busy trying to celebrate over Indiana Jones not doing well, because apparently that's woke. Okay. See how stupid and nonsensical these people are? Anyway, I'm going to continue reading what this was. Okay, so God's children are not for sale. They were entranced by what they clearly took for a searing expose. Not even the occasional nasty coughing fit, and we had no shortage of those, could break the spell. That's so funny.
That is fucking funny.
Because old people cough all the time. At the outset, we're introduced to Caviezel as Ballard, working for the Department of Homeland Security, of course, as part of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. He takes down purveyors of child pornography, but is haunted by the knowledge that the actual victims are beyond his grasp. Meanwhile, a father in Honduras entrusts his young daughter and son to a woman who claims she can set them up with modeling careers, only to abduct them for transport to a child sex trafficking ring in Colombia. When Ballard takes the initiative of arranging his first sting to nab a pedophile who has a stolen child in tow, he conveniently ends up rescuing that little boy, and commits to finding the sister as well. Eventually, he'll abandon the Department of Homeland Security altogether, a rogue crusader fed up with the bureaucratic limitations to infiltrate and bring down the Colombian operation. By the way, this is also very much conservative politics 101. The government is too big. The government is stupid. It's not actually solving the problems, which is why we shouldn't have a government, right? Which is basically what this is saying. And we'll take matters into our own hands.
Yeah.
We'll take up in arms, and we'll... I mean, I wonder how that has played into, events recently in history. Jesus. I mean, this is pretty basic stuff to see, and yet... Okay. Apart from its relentless messaging... No. Wow. I guess it didn't beat you over the head with it. The movie is hobbled by a near total absence of procedural logic. That original rescue is only possible because Ballard is standing at the exact right spot of a U.S.-Mexico border station at the very first moment his target tries to cross. Lucky. Earlier, Ballard convinces an imprisoned child porn peddler facing a sentence of 30 years to help him contact traffickers in exchange for an immunity deal, needlessly posing as a pedophile himself to gain trust. When the guy fulfills his end of the bargain, Ballard has a dozen police officers swarm the diner they're in to arrest him again? Wait, how was he sprung from custody in the first place? Doesn't matter as long as the drooling creep with requisite glasses and pervert mustache gets his head slammed against a table once more. The same muddled approach is taken to Ballard's later, more sensational busts, which is certainly in keeping with the embellishes and misrepresents their international missions according to a Vice News investigation in the group. Then you have Caviezel, bleach blonde to match Ballard's buff, clean-cut Mormon profile. Performance-wise, he's stuck on a note of world historical grief, either crying or staring with bloodshot eyes as he attempts to convey the scale and weight of the tragedy before him. The unambiguous hero of the piece, Ballard invokes parenthood as his motivation or an argument to get the cooperation he wants. "What if this was your daughter?" is practically his catchphrase. Yet aside from a dialogue-free breakfast scene, he never interacts with his offspring. And if Mira Sorvino, who plays his wife, Catherine, spent more than a day on set, you'd never know it.
Yep.
She's there for all of 2 minutes, offering brief words of encouragement while Ballard spends weeks undercover as a Laos sex tourist in Central America. She, too, evidently, had a personal stake in joining this film, telling Washington Examiner this week that she has met so many child survivors, and my heart burns for them. As implausible as the movie is, it invents a finale where Ballard journeys deep into a jungle alone to pluck a girl from the clutches of guerrilla militants, which he accomplishes by posing as a doctor distributing cholera vaccines. I thought these people were against vaccines.
Uh-huh.
One wonders
he doesn't really use them, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's fake.
Okay. One wonders if it was extreme enough for Cazille's liking. The actor has taken to repeating the most grotesque falsehoods of the sprawling QAnon ideology, among them that traffickers are harvesting children's organs and extracting the chemical compound adrenochrome from their brains before murdering them.
Wait, what?
So the actor, Caviezel, has taken to repeating the most grotesque falsehoods from QAnon, which includes that traffickers harvest children's organs and extract the chemical compound adrenochrome from their brains before murdering them. Now, the actor believes this. Part of the QAnon conspiracy.
I believe that.
Okay. Do you believe that the actor believes that?
Yes.
Not that you believe this?
No.
Yeah, okay. I know that's what you meant, but I wanted the audience to make sure that there was any room for misrepresentation or miscommunication there. The article continues. Compared to this nonsense, Sound of Freedom is relatively grounded in our universe, but the mainstream accessibility makes it valuable as a recruitment tool, much as generic Save the Children campaigns prove gateways to far-right conspiracy theories about a secret cabal of evil elites conducting blood rituals, which is, by the way, if you're QAnon, you think that the entire Democratic Party are pedophiles, and which is why you hate them and why you want to kill them, or not vote for them at the very least. On the QAnon message board Great Awakening this week, adherents celebrated the movie's box office success. It quickly made back its modest budget of around $14 million, while crowing that demons, including movie theater employees, annoyed by the demographic it pulled in, were miserable at their victory. Do you see how more powerful we are than the legacy news? Wrote one board user. We are the news now. On a different board thread, someone attempted to prove that Donald Trump's endorsement of the film on Truth Social on Thursday was connected to a random Q post from 2018 because of the timestamps on each. Some discussed efforts to get normies who are in need of awakening to see Sound of Freedom, including with the assistance of a promotional program that allows customers to buy tickets for strangers. Crimes against children will unite us all. Eyes are opening, read one optimistic post.
Oh, no!
While another was more emphatic still, we are witnessing true divine intervention.
Okay.
It matters, too, that Sound of Freedom almost never saw the light of day. Completed in 2018, no studio would take it for fear of losing money. According to producer Eduardo V. With Netflix and Amazon among those who passed, it finally found distribution thanks to Angel Studios, a Utah-based media company that crowdfunds original films and TV series that amplify light, quote-unquote, amplify light in quotation marks. Although founded by Mormon brothers who originally created a content filtering service to prevent children from seeing violence, nudity, and profanity, it claims no formal church affiliation.
Oh, okay. But child porn is fine.
But yeah. Therefore, to its boosters, the movie checks many satisfying boxes at once. Caviezel, a devout Catholic, allegedly blacklisted by the entertainment industry, back for a mythology-burnishing biopic of Ballard, a call to action in an imagined global war against sexual predators, a blow struck at the heart of woke Hollywood, the den of inequity that snubbed it, and, lest we forget, is thought of to produce the wealthy deviants who serve as villains in the story. Let's see. Meanwhile, it will surely do no good to point out Sound of Freedom's... What's this word? Hackneyed? Sound of Freedom's hackneyed white savior narrative, or its wildly immature assumption that abused and traumatized children go right back to normal once the bad guys are in handcuffs, or that it enforces stereotypes about trafficking that Angel Studios itself says are less than accurate. To the film's intended viewers, these cannot be flaws, they're the whole appeal. There is visible suffering all around us in America. There are poor and unhoused, and people brutalized or killed by the police. There are mass shootings, lack of health care, climate disasters, and yet, over and over, the far right turns to these sordid fantasies about godless monsters hurting children. Damn. Now, as in the and I thought I was being tough. Now, as in the 1980s, satanic panic, they won't even face the fact that most kids who suffer sexual abuse are harmed not by a shadowy cabal of strangers, but by the hands of a family member.
Yep.
To know thousands of adults will absorb Sound of Freedom, this vigilante fever dream, and come away thinking themselves better informed on a hidden civilizational crisis. Well, it's profoundly depressing. Worse still, they'll want to spread the word. That's where it ends. But I mean, that's inherently my main issue with conservatism, conservatives, and these people ultimately. Is like there's no shortage of crises happening all over this country. Mm-hmm. In many ways, we are desolate, and I feel third world in our approach and inability to even handle any of these crises. There is human brutality happening all around us, inhumaneness, inequality happening all around us, and yet, as this person just wrote, the things that animate the right the most is these sordid fantasies about godless monsters hurting children, or it's always the same thing. And it's just so, as you said, icky.
Yes. Agreed. It was insane.
Because, I mean, honestly, I wonder how this audience would respond if Angel took it upon itself to make a film in the same vein as it treated child sex trafficking, but the homeless issue.
Uh-huh.
Or the climate crisis.
Yes.
I wonder if they would show up for that.
Uh-huh.
And they won't.
No.
Because they don't believe in that. They don't believe in helping people. They don't believe in helping the poor. They don't believe in helping the environment, even though it's in their Bible.
They don't believe in helping kids, even though that's their whole spiel. No.
Right. They want to exterminate trans kids.
Yep.
I mean, it says, I feel like it says it all that right now, Donald Trump's main GOP contender, his way of trying to I would categorize it as out Nazi, but I'll be fair, out right wing Trump. DeSantis is going hard on being overtly homophobic as possible. Mm-hmm. And he's even running ads saying that Trump is an ally of the LGBTQ community, which, by the way, he is not.
Ally.
Okay. But yeah, that's where this country is right now, and I mean, again, for those who may misconstrue things, we are not trying to belittle a film that is trying to, bring awareness to this very serious issue. That's the only part of this that's halfway decent.
Yeah.
Everything else around it and the people around it and the people going to go see it, that's what the issue is.
Yeah. And the way that it's depicted is also a big issue. But...
No, yeah, I mean, you're basically a superhero.
I literally saw child porn.
Damn.
It's just, yeah. I never want to see anything like that ever again. And the crazy part, though, so I went to work, and tell me why, a bunch of my coworkers had seen it. And I was like, where the fuck are you hearing this from? How do you know about this movie? And then they're like, oh my god, yes, it's so good. Blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, I cried the whole movie. I literally looked at them and I like laughed, like uncomfortably laughed, because I was like, what?
I feel like if you were dragged into seeing that movie, you either knowingly or unknowingly have been captured by members of the alt-right right wing. And sure, the movie made it. And look, maybe I shouldn't. The issue isn't, oh, people came away liking it. You clearly were very uncomfortable with the film and probably are having a hard time seeing how people would, walk away with the reactions that you have seen yourself. But again, we have to keep in mind that, look, I'm not a person, and people may think by the number of insults that I've thrown at the right wing, this podcast or any podcast, that they may assume me as, as somebody that likes to, be combative. I try not really. When I encounter people like them, I just walk away. I'm not somebody that, actively
I mean, you can't
wants...
hide, like, your emotions.
No, I can't do that either. But the thing is, like, I don't take pleasure in making people feel bad. Mm-hmm. I'm not that kind of person. But when it comes to the conservative mind, there's no other way to describe it as just pure brain rot. Pure brain rot that is unable to see how manipulated they are by the powers of fear and hate, and how they're being used by the worst evils in this world to distract everybody else from the real issues that plague our society, that plague our civilization. We need to be talking about universal health care. We need to be talking about saving the planet from ourselves. Those are the most important issues. But we can never get anywhere when the corporate powers have so sowed a culture that is just consumed with whatever the right wing wants to talk about, which distract from the real issues. Mm-hmm. When we have a news media that is just literally owned by people like Jeff Bezos, what do you think they're going to be talking about? Instead of like talking about, income inequality or the housing crisis, the whole week it'll be, oh, isn't it sad that these people died on the Titanic sub thing?
Mm-hmm.
To distract you from what's really happening. And it's like, the thing that is that these people are so ready to jump on the conspiracy theories because they know it in their bones that, the institutions, the news media, the government is inherently corrupt. Everybody knows it. We all feel it. But they all jump on the wrong things and they all jump to blame the wrong people. And it's like, all of the things that we're seeing happening these last few years are literally what the Nazis did. Banning books, burning books, ostracizing people, persecuting people, treating them as second-class citizens. All of this literally happened in history, all the while you're trying to remove history from the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
It is all of this is going to a very scary place. And I can't be the only person seeing it. Like, it's all happening again.
It is.
But it's happening here, in this country. And it's like the right wing can't see, they can't entertain, or actually, that's not even being fair. Some of them actually do see how their ideology is a gateway to Nazism, but they get mad, not because, they're called Nazis, but because they're bringing attention that they're bad.
Mm-hmm.
They're going after content in media that says Nazis are bad. I mean, again, we joked about this last week, but Harrison Ford, when Indiana Jones came out 2 weeks ago, he got hate because he said that, he'd punch a Nazi in the face, or that Indy would punch a Nazi in the face. When did it become taboo to proudly say you'd punch a Nazi in the face? Nazis are hate-filled monsters. Nazis led to 6 million people of one religion and ethnicity being burned in an oven. Well, not even that, but they were shot, or the whole 6 million of them just killed because of what they were. Yeah, I'd punch a Nazi too, and so should you.
Yeah.
How is that like a brave thing to say? Sorry.
I feel the same way. Like this, I'm telling you, after this movie, I was just like shook. I couldn't. It was such a weird feeling of just like, what the fuck did I just watch? What did I just experience?
And I keep hearing stories. I know you mentioned earlier in the show about, the reunion for our high school reunion, but I keep hearing stories of people who went to high school with us who are becoming openly transphobic. And it just breaks my heart. It's so strange, too, because a lot of these are people who are our age, we went to high school with, and they're being captured by this right-wing machine.
Mm-hmm.
It's just disgusting.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how we can walk away from that and get to a happier place. If it's even possible, but yeah, that's a story that happened over the weekend with this movie, Sound of Freedom, which, of course, in and of itself, that's just an obnoxious title, right? Because they also have captured the term freedom for it to mean something that's actually not about freedom. Great. They co-opted that. And it's like, it's so annoying because, I guess I'm still going to be on this topic. There were people who were literally like complaining all June long how they're annoyed that, first of all, everyone is celebrating Pride. They were mystified as to why people would want to celebrate gay people. And then third of all, they were mad at them for co-opting Pride. So that they can't use Pride anymore. Uh-huh. Well, you bitches co-opted freedom. Yeah. Scary times we're living in.
It really is.
So, in case anybody forgot, that's still out there in the wings. Anyway, I would also say, as far as how this involves the movie business, well, I mean, it makes perfect sense as to why the main studios would not want to be affiliated with any movie that stars an actor that is very much a QAnon person. Yeah. That's just 101. You don't want to have that kind of cabal with you. The QAnon people are hopelessly deluded. And you don't want to be working with that. I wonder why they were afraid to lose money. I mean, if it weren't for the exploitative nature of the film itself, I mean, that alone would repel people from want to work with you. Like all these, that's why. But even then, it's like, it's not really worth investing in it anyway. I mean, it was what it was. Anywho, getting back to maybe a brighter mood here. Barbenheimer. I've mentioned it several times. And people who are listening may not even be aware of what that even means. I don't know how, but it's actually kind of exciting though.
I'm really excited.
It's exciting because this never really happens because Barbenheimer is the name combined of the two upcoming films, Oppenheimer and Barbie. Oppenheimer by Nolan and Barbie by Greta Gerwig. They're both coming out the same week. They're very different films. And because it's very easily discernible that Universal and WB are doing this because they want to go against each other. Particularly Universal to a less extent, but Nolan chose this date. WB's mad at Nolan for ditching them. Even after all that they did for him, of course they would be upset. So they made it very clear early on that it was going to be a Barbie versus Oppenheimer showdown because WB and Nolan are very much on very bad terms. That's why this whole thing happened. Now, the movement, or I guess the phenomenon that is Barbenheimer, was just a happy accident. It's one of these things that if a studio tried and pushed this, it wouldn't work. Remember last year or the year before, Sony tried to push Morbius. They even put it back in theaters with the whole "it's Morbin time" thing, and then it was again a spectacular failure. Well, here no studio was involved. This was a grassroots thing where people and film fans alike were just like, "Hey, these two very different films are coming out on the same day, and they're both highly anticipated." And out of nowhere, I mean, the name Barbenheimer emerged, and then actual merchandise emerged. Like right now, if you wanted to, if you find the right places, you can go and purchase Barbenheimer merchandise. We're talking t-shirts and we're talking posters. That's insane. Like this is I
love people sometimes.
Yeah, right? Like this is one of the few times where we can say we love people. Like the craze has been, I mean, hilarious. It's helped out both films' tracking numbers for sure. And it was actually revealed today. I want to say that AMC Theaters released this because of the craze and the mania going on behind Barbenheimer. It has helped both movies to the point that many people have already booked their double features on opening day. So AMC Theaters says more than 20,000 moviegoers have already booked Barbie, Oppenheimer double features.
Nice. They should have made it a special.
More than 20,000 people have already booked Barbie, Oppenheimer double features. That's your whole day.
Yeah.
That's your whole day. Because one movie is 3 hours, maybe even more than 3 hours, and then one movie is 2 hours at least. Let alone the breaks in between. That is amazing. Like it's stuff like this that gets your hopes up and reminds you how important the theatrical vertical is. To have that around. Like this stuff like this should remind the studios, hey, I know you forgot about us, but like this is why we're still kind of important, and you guys are fools for thinking that we were a thing of the past.
Yeah.
Lon Harris retweeted that saying, Hollywood is starting to figure out the new landscape. You have to make people feel like this is an event everyone will be talking about, and they're going to miss out if they don't see your movie in the theater. It has to be a meme, not just a movie. It's astonishing the extent to which this has caught people's attentions. I will say, full disclosure, I don't particularly enjoy Christopher Nolan these days. Not just because of the dick move he made during the COVID thing, where he like literally risked his own fans' lives by, again, releasing his latest movie in July 2020, almost a whole year before there was any kind of vaccines or movies even came back as a thing. But I still feel that was a very reckless and really malicious thing to do. In the middle of a global plague, you decide my movie's important enough to risk your life, basically. So I know a lot of people have just like gotten over it. I haven't, and that kind of like really doesn't, warm me up to him. In addition to, in large part, Tenet did not interest me because it looked a lot like Dunkirk, and Dunkirk I did not care for. You could make every argument in the book that Dunkirk is an amazing feat of filmmaking and craft on display. Okay, sure, but it is a gimmick wrapped around several other gimmicks in one.
It was okay.
It is not a film that is concerned with narrative or characters or story.
Honestly, I don't even remember what happens.
I don't either. So like his latest movies have just not been interesting. They've been really consumed with like high concept more than anything else. It's like he's just trying to test how far you can take this. With Oppenheimer, though, I think to an extent you can make an argument that both Oppenheimer and Barbie maybe are not the films that people think they will be. But with Oppenheimer, I think people have this misconception that's going to be a blockbuster action movie. It's a drama, people. It's like a straightforward. To an extent, I'm excited it's going to be a drama because like this. I'm hoping this will mean we'll get a Nolan film with characters.
Yeah.
We'll get a Nolan movie where we can actually hear the dialogue.
Yeah.
So that's what gets me excited. But the other week my brother like thought it was a World War II movie. I'm like, well, it takes place in the era of World War II, but it's not a war picture.
No.
It's a drama film. It's like, think of
literally they say it in the trailer.
Yeah,
like they're stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's not
that at all. And I'm really curious to see. But I mean, Nolan's people will be there because Nolan has his cult, and they're gonna go out there and they're gonna be like, "It's the best movie ever made." Probably, yeah, probably. And as far as Barbie is concerned, well, that's a different situation because I love Greta Gerwig.
I do too.
I love her movies, Lady Bird and Little Women.
Amazing,
sensational movies. And the idea of her doing a Barbie film was interesting. But when that first teaser dropped, people were shook. When that first teaser dropped, it was like, wow, this is not at all what we thought it would be.
No.
And everything that has come out has only reaffirmed the excitement for what this could be. And I also remember how a few months ago on this podcast, we were like, shaming people for thinking that Ryan Gosling had no business being in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they now?
I know.
Where are they now? Because those clips have come out, and look how good he looks in the film. Look how perfect he was.
He's like one of the best things about the movie, which good for him.
Mm-hmm. So, but that too, I wonder. I'm hoping that people are going to be very understanding that these films, by and large, were not made to be 4-quadrant movies. They weren't made to appeal to everyone.
Yeah.
So
I'm so curious.
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like Oppenheimer is very much what you see, but Barbie I feel like has a big, not even twist, but there's actual like storytelling in it, and there's a message. Yeah. And I'm so curious to see people's reactions. Yeah. AKA women haters.
Well, I mean, I feel it's all but inevitability that the people who we just were criticizing in the last hour for having nothing to say about what was it called again? Sound of Freedom? Uh-huh. I'm sure they're going to be first in line to start, labeling Barbie the queen of woke. Uh-huh. And attacking it for its message, probably saying, "Oh, they're feminazis," or things like that. I mean, it's the writing's on the wall. That's how they're going to react, most likely to it. And maybe they'll take by default Nolan's side because it's a movie about a bomb.
The bomb.
The bomb. Yeah. I agree with you. Oppenheimer is very much what you see is what you get, I'd say. Barbie, there's a lot of mystery to like how it's actually going to feel watching it. Uh-huh. It does feel like you don't know what you're going to get with that movie. Yeah. It's exciting also. You don't get that too often.
And like I feel like we've seen so much from it already, but I feel like
But to be clear, there's a reason why we've seen so much from it already. The reason they already had their premiere and their press tour because, by the way, there may be a strike issued this week. So they wanted to get their press tour before this happened, because if that strike does get issued by SAG, No one can do press. No one can do interviews. No one can do anything. So from what I understand, 2 weeks before the movie came out, they made a decision to roll out their campaign now, because if the strike happened, they wouldn't have the chance to do any of this.
Okay.
That's why we've seen clips already and all this stuff, and why they had their premiere, and why we've seen reactions slowly, get out there, because, well, if the strike happens, there'll be no word on the movie.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I think to an extent, that's why we've seen so much already of the film. Like, it feels like it's going to come out this week, but it's not. Because something else monumental may occur this week that'll prevent people from actually promoting the movie. So
I also think it's so funny how many people wanted to go to the premiere.
Yeah,
it's I am so ready for this movie to come out.
I mean, you're gonna be there day one.
Oh my god, are you joking?
Yeah.
I was there the moment they announced it, and I was like, yes, because I don't know. Barbie has such an interesting history. Oh my god, that scared the shit out of me. Sorry, it's because my dog's sitting behind the computer and I forgot she was there.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, that scared me. Jeez. But yes, I'm so excited.
I was talking about this with Peter and Kyle. Which one do you do first?
I do Barbie.
See, that's what I thought initially. But Peter was like, well, Oppenheimer does end, most likely will end on a downer.
That's true.
So I think his idea was like, if you do Oppenheimer first, you get that out of the way. And then Barbie should be more fun.
Yeah.
And that's how you end the night. But Barbie's the one that's more exciting to see.
Yeah.
That's the thing, But then again, if you see Barbie, and if it's really good and you're glowing in the excitement, do you really want to see Oppenheimer after that?
What day are you guys going? Because I may be down in Brawley that weekend.
Well, I mean, we're gonna go Thursday, July 20th. What day will you be there?
Probably Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Maybe. I don't know yet. It's to be determined, but...
Okay. Well, if you are, it's because, man, what luck. I'm going to be most likely not there that weekend. I'm going to be here Thursday, but I think, fingers crossed, I'll be somewhere else.
Okay.
So, I don't want to say it.
Yes.
Because, as often has been the case, if we say what we're doing ahead of time, it won't happen at all.
Yes.
But I expect, on some level, that I won't be in Brawley that weekend. But I will be here Thursday for Barbenheimer. So, and if you will be here, I know Kyle and Peter will be here for a fact, so you can go see it with them if you want. Again.
Yes.
So, yeah. Is there anything else to say? Oh, there's one thing. One thing before we leave. We should mention this. So, if SAG-AFTRA decides to strike on Wednesday, actors will not be able to film any movie and TV productions, take part in any press junkets or film premieres, promote anything at San Diego Comic-Con, and will be advised to not attend at all, at a bare minimum. If SAG-AFTRA decides to strike after all this week, it will be a complete and total shutdown of Hollywood.
Fuck.
So even things that are filming right now, like House of the Dragon, or Andor, or Deadpool 3, or Captain America, comes to a grinding halt.
So what are their goals? What do they want?
Well, for one, they want the streaming figures to be released. That way they can ascertain a reasonable, fair deal on their part. Because one of the big things in this strike situation is a lot of these actors made most of their money off of residual checks that would come in through either films or TV shows that would play on TV or in reruns, or through licensing deals. Residual checks that would come in long after it, stopped airing. And a lot of the times, the popularity of whether or not a TV show would air in syndication would be on, TV ratings, which were very much public. And so right now, what they're seeking is they want residual checks from the shows that they make on streaming and the movies that they make on streaming. But right now, there's no model to base that off because they don't release the public numbers of how many people actually watch those shows and those movies. And what they want is for the studios to release that so they can make a new model for a new era of residual checks. That way they can live in between projects.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big things that they want to, but the studios don't want to do that. First of all, they don't want to give them any more money. But second of all, they don't want to reveal how embarrassingly low the numbers are for how much money they've spent, because they will be held to pay for a lot of executives once that happens. That's one of the very big things. The other thing is this issue of artificial intelligence and how much of it to use. A lot of the writers in particular do not want... They stipulate in their demands that they don't want AI to basically be used to replace them. They don't want the studios to train AI to write like certain writers. They don't want their scripts being fed to train AI. They basically want to limit AI as much as humanly possible because studios already want to jump on that fucking gun. So those are two major issues right now. That the writers right now are on strike, and the actors themselves may find that they also are not getting what they need out of the current deal and may strike. And if the actors strike, that's writer.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the ball game.
Yep.
That basically puts their balls in the vice. If the actors start working, no one's working.
Yep. Well. Interesting stuff. Go them.
Yeah. I hope it all works out for them.
Mm-hmm.
I hope the actors don't stab the writers in the back because the writers need somebody to strike with them. They can't just do it all by themselves because the writers are always the first people to get walked all over on.
Yep.
Which is, by the way, it's strikes like these that highlight why the animator... The animation people and the visual effects people need their own unions. Because they're not included in any of this.
They don't have anything.
They don't have anything. And they need to unionize and they need to fucking strike. Because they're the bottom of the totem pole, that's for sure.
Yep.
Anyway, we'll go ahead and end it there. Thank you, Alexis, for being here. And we might see you again soon on a different project. Or different projects, in plural. We'll see. Thank you all for listening. Remember to podcast every single Sunday, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Stay under our spotlight for the upcoming reviews on Mission Impossible, Barbenheimer, and more. Till next time, we'll see you. Bye-bye.